Well, hello, welcome again to our reading of the Greek New Testament, and I'm just reading through Galatians in Greek and translating it. As I mentioned before, you should be consulting commentary on more detail here. So up to chapter 3, Paul continues his arguments about law versus faith, really summarising some of the material that he will do later in Romans. And he does this in this particular chapter with lots of quotations, generally without any context, from the Old Testament, and generally from the Septuagint version of the Old Testament. So he begins, O anoetoi Galatai, tis humas ebaskanen, hois kataphthalmus Jesus Christos pro egraphe estaromenos. So this is a question. O foolish Galatians. Now this word here, the alpha at the beginning is an alpha privative, an alpha negative. The not, it's that nous noos root of the mind. So being unmindful, hence foolish, not applying your mind properly. So, and this word just comes to mean foolish. So, O foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you? This is from baskino. You get a vowel gradation from the alpha iota back to an alpha here. The word originally meant to speak ill of someone, and then it comes to have a more magic overtones of bewitching. It only occurs here in the New Testament, but it is it is a classical word. You get other forms of this as well in classical Greek. So who has bewitched you? This is the aorist here. You for whom katophthalmus, before your very eyes, it's the sense of it, Jesus the Messiah, pro egraphe. Now this is an aorist passive here from pro grapho, and it's really a metaphor from painting. So pro grapho is to portray, to draw a picture of something. So you for whom before your very eyes Jesus the Messiah was portrayed as having been crucified. This is an aorist passive participle here from stauroo. Tutomonon thelomethane af humin, ex ergo nomu topneuma elabete a ex akoes pisteos. So he asked lots of these rhetorical questions, which is part of Paul's method, and in fact it's a standard technique in prose and in arguments to ask rhetorical questions and then give the answer. I wish this alone, monon is an adverb here, so I wish to learn this alone, I just want to learn this, af humon, from you. Did you receive the Spirit as a result of works of the law, or as a result of... Now the X possibly, in fact probably here, goes with the pistios. Akoe is hearing. It can also mean ears actually, but hearing. So as a result of the faith which you heard. Literally the faith which came from here as a result of hearing. So did you receive the Spirit by means of works of the law, or by means of faith which resulted from hearing? Hutos anoetoi esti. So este enaxamenoi pneumatis nun saki epiteleste. So he uses this word again that we had up at the beginning. This is the second person plural from the verb to be. So are you so stupid? Are you so foolish? Having made a beginning, ex and archemai, in the spirit, now epiteleiste, you will bring it to completion in the flesh. This could be middle, it could also be will you be made perfect. It could be passive here, which may be probably more likely. So now, will you be made perfect in the flesh, so by means of the flesh. Tausauta epatheti ake. Have you experienced or have you suffered such things ake in vain? This is an old fossilized form, really. Sometimes you get it without the subscript. It's simply translated in vain. So have you experienced these things? This is from Pasco, the aorist from Pasco. Pasco, the aorist is epathon. It can mean to suffer. It can also mean to experience. So have you experienced such things in vain? Age kai ake, if indeed they were also in vain. So in other words, what you've experienced was not in vain. So he's saying, well, have you experienced these things in vain, if indeed they were in vain, i.e. they weren't. Houn epikoregon humin to pneuma kai energon dunames en humin ex ergon nomu e ex akoes pistios. So another question here. Therefore, now the participle here is epikoregon from epikoregio. This is a fairly late word. It does occur elsewhere in Paul. It means supplying. Without the epi, it's connected with the choregos. It's actually connected with the word for dance. The choregos in 5th century Athens and later was the wealthy citizen who paid for the Greek chorus to be trained so as to perform in the Greek plays. It was quite an expensive exercise. And they were called the choregos, and choregeia was the act of doing this. It was a little bit like public service. And so the verb then comes to mean to supply. The epichoregio, it's a late verb. It comes to mean supply, because the choregos supplied the money for the chorus. So it's an interesting word, fairly rare. It's a later Greek word. You won't find it in earlier Greek. The uncompounded form you will, of course, but the epichoregio comes to mean to supply. So the one, therefore, supplying the Spirit to you, and energon, this is one of Paul's favourite words, working dunamis, miracles almost, working mighty things among you. Dunamis, working powerful things among you. This is the plural from dunamis, third declension, feminine noun. And it's all a question. So did the one who supplied the Spirit to you and who worked among you mighty things. Now there's no main verb here. Did he do this as a result of works of the law, or by means of faith which arose from hearing? So it's one of those sentences in Paul where there's no main verb. You've got to supply something like was he or did he do this? Kathos Abraham epistusen to theou kai logiste auto es dikaiosunein. This is this quotation which you'll see also, of course, in Romans, and of course James also uses the same quotation, but comes to a slightly different conclusion. So just as Abraham believed God, and it was reckoned to him for righteousness, or as righteousness. The quotation's from Genesis 12:3, I think. Gignosketi ara hoti hoi ekpistios, hutoi huioi esin Abram. You know then, now the ara here is a nice little particle. It's sort of like a therefore, but it's not so strong. So you realize then that those who are as a result of faith, those ones are the sons of Abraham. So you could paraphrase that slightly. Do you realize? So you realize then that those who are perhaps come from God will come to God as a result of faith. These are the sons of Abraham. It's one of these very grammatically unclear sentences that you get in Paul, the hoi ekpistios. But it's picking up the ekpistios from earlier on. Pro idusa de hegraphe hoti ekpistios dikaioi ta ethnehotheos, pro euangelisata en to Abram, hoti en eulogithe sontai en soipanta ta ethne. The scripture, now this graphe always with the article refers to the Old Testament, so the scripture, looking ahead, having looked ahead, so seeing ahead that God dikaioi, now this is a verb, it's dikaio is the verb, and so it's an omicron contract verb, and so it's dikaioe, and that contracts to the oi. So this is actually just a present indicative verb. So the scripture looking ahead, or seeing ahead that God makes just the Gentiles, ta ethne, ek pistios, as a result of faith. He promised beforehand to Abraham that, and now we get another quotation here. I think this one, this one's from Genesis 12. I got the other one wrong. I think this is from Genesis 12:3. So all the Gentiles will be blessed in you. You get a neuter plural subject, plural verb. The verb here is en eulogemai, and this is the future passive. So all the Gentiles will be blessed in you. And this is the one from Genesis 12. Hosti, so that hoi ekpistios euloguntai sunto pisto Abraham, so that those who arise as a result of faith are blessed along with the faith of Abraham, with the faithful Abraham. This is pistos, the adjective. This is not pistis, the noun. So all those who come as a result of faith are blessed along with faithful Abraham. Hosoiga ex ergo nomu esin hupakatarain esin. For as many as are or exist by means of works of the law. So he's sort of saying those who are under the law, but it's just those who are as a result or exist as a result of works of the law. Asin, they are hupakataran, they are under a curse. There is an old verb, aramai, to curse. This is the ara is another word for a curse, and cat becomes katara in later Greek. So they are under a curse. Gegrap taiga hoti epi kataratos pas hos uk emene pasin tois gegramenois ento biblio tu nomu tu poi esai alta. Now this again is a quotation now from Deuteronomy 27. So he says, "For it has been written," perfect passive from Grapho, and then that. Now we get an adjective here, epikataratos, so it's just another stronger form of this word we've had here, but this is now an adjective. So everyone who does not remain in all the things written in the book of the law. Now 2 plus the infinitive, articular infinitive of purpose here, so as to perform these things. Now we have to understand is, and we go back to epikataratos, is accursed. So we can do that first. So cursed is everyone who does not remain in all the things written in the book of the law, so as to do them, so as to carry them out. Hoti de en nomu udes dikai utai parato theodelon, hoti hodikaios ekpistios tsesatai. Because in the law no one, so dailon here. Again, Greek word order could be odd here. You've got to supply the verb to be and take the dailon, in fact, before the hoti. So it is clear that no one is made just in the law beside God, so in regard to God. Because hodikaios ekpistios tsesatai, because the just will live as a result of faith. And that's a quotation from Habakkuk 2:4. One could also translate this slightly differently. You could just remove the comma here and just take it as it comes, so that no one is made just in the law in regard to God. So that fact is clear, and you could take hoti meaning because the just will live by faith as a result of faith. So 2 possible ways of taking that, depending on the punctuation. Again, I'll leave you to look at commentaries on this, to look at the different interpretations. Hodenomos ugesti ek pistios al hopoiesas auta tsesatai en autois. So here we get another quotation here. This one is from Leviticus 18, verse 5. But the law does not exist ugestin as a result of faith, but the one having performed these things will live by them. So it could be that instrumental use of en here. This is again quotation from the Septuagint, and in the Septuagint the word that's translated as en, which is a inseparable preposition b, has a huge range of meanings and usages. It's always translated by en in the Septuagint, so it can mean in, but it can also mean by. So the one doing these things will live in them or by them. Christos hemas ex agoresen ektes kataras tu nomu genominos huper hemon katera hotigegraptai epikataratos pas ho kremamenos epixulu hina eis ta ethne he eulogia tu Abram genetain Christo Jesu hina ten ep angelian tu pneumatos labomen diates pistios. So Christ, now the verb here is ex agorazdo. Ex agorazdo. Agorazdo is to buy or purchase. The ex simply means to purchase from. Christ has purchased us from the curse, this is the noun here, katara, from the curse of the law, he having become katara, a curse, on behalf of us. So having himself understood, become a curse on our behalf. Hoti gegraptai, well, hoti for hos here, so as it is written, or perhaps because it is written, it has been written, perfect passive from grapho. Cursed, there's that adjective again that we saw from back up here. Cursed is everyone, the one hanging literally upon wood. This is from kremamai, is the verb. There is kremanumi in earlier Greek. This one I think is from kremamai, same root. It means to hang. Now, xulu, it literally is wood, or the tree, and of course it refers, well, it's being interpreted here to refer to the cross. Wouldn't have been in the original context of the quotation, but cursed is everyone who hangs upon the tree. In antiquity, it's a form of punishment and also a form of warning off other would-be evildoers. People who were put to death were often hung up on trees and walls of cities as an example to others to behave themselves. So cursed is everyone, the one being hung, this will be a passive here, everyone being hung or hanging upon being hung upon the tree. Hina, in order that the blessing, the eulogia of Abraham, might be to the Gentiles in the Messiah Jesus. There's no special dative form for Yesu, it just uses the same ending here, so this is a dative, so in the Messiah Jesus. Hina, in order that, labomin, this is an aorist subjunctive from lambano, order that we might receive or take the promise of the Spirit, dietes pistios, through or by means of faith, or through faith. And that's the first part of chapter 2.